This video is sponsored by Mobalytics. Try out their new pregame function in which they can tell you what power spikes the enemy champions are going to have, and other useful tips such as who hasn't been playing very well recently and who's been playing extremely well recently. Sign up for free at mobalytics.gg. So the reworked version of Aatrox is finally out, and the consensus of most players who've tried him so far is that Aatrox is pretty garbage right now. But how good or bad is actual Aatrox versus old Aatrox? And what are their similarities? What are the things that have been improved upon, and what are some of the things that new Aatrox has lost compared to old Aatrox? We're going to take a look at exactly how good or bad new Aatrox is compared to old Aatrox. So Aatrox, for the majority of his existence, has not been in the meta. Ironically, just before his rework, he was actually considered the #1 top laner in professional play. The main reason for this is not because Aatrox himself was strong, but because everything around Aatrox made him strong. The meta had quickly shifted into a more early to mid-game focused game, and two items in particular made Aatrox disgustingly powerful, and those were Guinsoo's Rageblade and Titanic Hydra. And because he had this strongest 2-item power spike in all of League of Legends, pro players highly valued Aatrox in this new meta. Aatrox was ridiculously strong because he could take incredible advantage of the Guinsoo's passive along with Titanic Hydra. The combo was incredibly simple. Hit Q, knocking up someone guarantees your E, it also guarantees an auto attack. Titanic Hydra resets your auto attack. Your ultimate gives you extra range, so you get a third auto attack. This procs Titanic Hydra 3 times, Guinsoo's Rageblade becomes fully stacked, and your W triggers with additional Guinsoo's damage. This is what made Aatrox so scary and so valuable in professional play, because pretty much no one could 1v1 him at this power spike, and few champions could even 2v1 him. So what about new Aatrox? What are some of the weaknesses that new Aatrox has compared to old Aatrox? When new Aatrox's kit was announced and it was shown to everyone, most people, myself included, believed that he would become something of a Riven. His Q had 3 parts to it, it had knockups, it had healing. It looked like Aatrox had been taken from an auto attack based champion into a combo based champion. Now, what you will hear a lot about new Aatrox is that his kit is very clunky. It's very clunky and it feels very hard to use. What does that actually mean? Let's use the champion that Aatrox was believed to be most similar as an example, Riven. So Riven's full combo, when you hit either her 3rd Q or her stun, you're largely guaranteed to hit her full combo. Every single damaging ability that Riven has is likely going to hit you, so long as you hit that first crowd control ability. The point of a combination attack is to relentlessly attack one after another without giving your opponent any time to rest. You're making sure to kill someone so fast that they do not have time for a response. New Aatrox's combo doesn't really feel like a combo. With old Aatrox, so long as you hit your Q, you were guaranteed to pretty much hit every single one of your abilities. Old Aatrox's Q was your main source of crowd control. New Aatrox's main source of crowd control is in his W. It's a straight line skill shot that does not go through minions, and it pulls an enemy champion towards the middle. Here's the biggest problem with new Aatrox. Even if you hit his main crowd control ability, you are not guaranteed to hit every single part of your combo. This crowd control ability is easily dodgeable, but even worse than that, even if you get hit by it, you can actually just walk out of it. You don't need dashes, you don't need mobility, you can literally just right click and walk out of his main crowd control ability. Your grandmother could escape Aatrox. And though every single portion of his Q is a knockup, the individual knockups themselves are not long enough in which you could combo the next knockup right afterwards. On old Aatrox, if you hit your Q, you were able to generally get a pick on whoever you hit that Q onto. Because of the burst that came out of your entire combo, you were able to pretty much 100-0 someone instantly. This is what a real combo looks like. Though it is still possible to combo and 100-0 someone, it takes much longer and you need to hit every single part of your Q, and new Aatrox's Q has a very slow animation. New Aatrox isn't really a combo champion. His combo is too dodgeable and too outplayable to really be called a combo. Unless you're going up against champions with little to no mobility, it is pretty much impossible to do something like this, in which the enemy opponent just sits there and takes every single part of your Q. The biggest loss, however, to new Aatrox is the iconic W ability that old Aatrox had, Blood Price and Bloodthirst. To be able to change from healing or damage and back and forth again, that mechanic was very unique to Aatrox, and it was a big part of what separated bad Aatrox players from amazing Aatrox players. Right now in his basic kit, new Aatrox doesn't really have anything that resembles old Aatrox. Old Aatrox was about sustaining in lane and all-inning when the time was right. New Aatrox's playstyle is about harassment. It's about pushing people out of lane. It's about bullying people with your Q and sustaining with your E. And this is where we move on to what has gotten better with new Aatrox. Old Aatrox's biggest weakness was his early game. His early game was incredibly weak because he did not have his ultimate, he did not have ways to easily proc his W, and attack speed champions in general are just generally very weak without their items. New Aatrox's early game is one of the single best early games in all of top lane. Even champions that have ridiculously strong early games like Jax or Tryndamere, even they have difficulty even competing with him in the early game. If you think about his Q, Aatrox's Q is basically like 3 abilities packed into one. And if you can hit every single part of this Q on a champion at level 1, when you throw in your passive on top of all that, you're pretty much not going to lose any matchup at level 1. This is of course assuming that you can hit every single part of your Q. Against melee champions, Aatrox is incredibly dominant. Because melee champions need to go up for CS, he basically gets guaranteed hits of his Q. You will find that unlike old Aatrox, new Aatrox wins a lot of top lane matchups. He's manaless, he gets free sustain from his E, he has harassment with his Q. As long as you hit your Q, you will win your lane. So Aatrox is far more powerful in the early game, but what about the mid game? One of the biggest improvements that new Aatrox actually does have is in his ultimate. His ultimate is basically a mobile GA. That is unique in League of Legends. Having an improved version of Guardian Angels every 1 or 2 minutes has a huge impact in how useful you are in teamfights. Old Aatrox either hit frontline or looked for opportunities to hit backline with his combo. New Aatrox pretty much just serves as a distraction for the backline. Because you have this free Guardian Angels that also allows you to retreat while you're resurrecting, it makes it really ideal for new Aatrox to buy a lot of time for his teammates in teamfights. It also makes diving champions super easy, since you are going to be the one that decides when is the Guardian Angels really going to come up, as opposed to old Aatrox where you needed to stack up your blood well beforehand. So long as there are no major mistakes from either you or your teammates, Aatrox should almost never fail a tower dive. Now, what do you build on new Aatrox and what runes do you take on new Aatrox? Because he is a bruiser caster now, there are 2 particular items that Aatrox players really like. Black Cleaver because it is pretty much a staple item for a lot of bruisers. Death Stance for survivability and a little bit more CDR. Styx Gauge, and of course, Guardian Angels. Having 1 GA is good, having 2 is better. You basically build him similarly to how you would build a Kled. As for runes, there are 2 major rune pages that are succeeding right now throughout the regions. The first one is this page taking Grasp of the Undying as your main keystone. Aatrox's new passive shreds percentage HP when he auto-attacks enemy champions. It has a fairly long cooldown, so it's somewhat similar to Jarvan's passive. Grasp of the Undying assists you in those 1 auto-attack procs. The other version of Aatrox that can be taken is an Arcane Comet version. Since he is a caster, Arcane Comet makes a lot of sense. And since his Q does knock people up, if you hit them, you're likely also able to hit Arcane Comet. You can go into Nimbus Cloak for extra movement speed when you cast your ultimate, and you can take Transcendence for extra CDR, because as a caster, it is very important to have low cooldowns. Now, here's the big question. How good is new Aatrox actually? At the end of his lifetime, old Aatrox was at the top of the meta. The Guinsoo's and Titanic Hydra combo made him the #1 top laner. So if we are judging that Aatrox, that old Aatrox would be a 5 out of 5 champion. New Aatrox is basically like a grade school bully. He peaks in the early game, and he's always going to be bullying and beating people up. But the champions that he's been beating up are going to outscale him. They're gonna be more useful than him if he doesn't snowball on them. Unless he beats them up so badly that he permanently scars them into AFKing. As more time goes on, Aatrox becomes more and more useless. He's gonna end up getting a job at McDonald's, he's gonna beat his girlfriend to blame her for his stupid kit. And at the end of the day, in a team fight, his only real purpose is to die. No Aatrox, 2 out of 5.